Hey folks, it's Bear Gardner, and we are here with another edition of Cards Special Operations Executive, and it is time for the rotation for the newly announced winter expansion Homefront, and because this rotation is a little impactful in places, I thought I might grab some people whose faces you might recognise, lock them in the Cards SOE bunker until such time as we're done recording, and force them to give your opinions. And as it turns out, I'm lucky enough to know some fairly smart people. So, sitting down below on the screen beneath the shiny Homefront thing, we have Core. Core, why don't you give yourself a quick introduction to all of the folks watching?
Hey guys, I'm CoreData. As some of you may know, I make some content related to cards, occasionally doing deck techs and gameplay videos, as well as occasionally streaming over on Twitch. I'm relatively new in comparison to my two co-hosts here. Only been playing for what 7-ish months, but I like to think I have a relatively good understanding of the game. So hopefully I can give some insights. But I I don't know if I'm the most qualified person in this call.
That's okay, because on the subject of qualified people, I've also managed to grab JKing7. JKing, why don't you tell people who you are if they don't already know?
All right, I'm JKing7. I also do cards, YouTube, and occasionally Twitch. And I mainly focus on the competitive aspect of the game. So this is talking about decks and the best decks in the game and how to play them well as covering news that particularly affects people who play the game a lot. So news about balance, news about rotation, and news about tournaments and whatnot. And I've been playing the game for 6.5 years, so I've been around the block here.
Which is interesting, because that means in the 6.5 years that you've done it, you've won exactly 50% of the World Championships, which you will never say yourself because you're far too humble. But JKing is indeed the threepeat Kards World Champion, and generally accepted by most top players to be one of, if not the best player that we have seen in the game. I'll say it because he's far too nice to do so. Guys, I am super, super grateful for you coming along and being part of this. It's going to make my life a little bit easier. In the interests of not taking too much of the poor human beings watching this time, I say too much because if you guys know us, we can all talk. If you check out the links down below, there are links to everyone's channels. Please go follow, like, and interact with everyone involved in this. I cannot stress enough at the moment how much the YouTube algorithm is being an absolute arse. And the more that you interact, the more that you engage with it, the more chance you're giving channels in a relatively small and niche world being made by passionate people a chance to actually grow. And it's kind of key at the moment because they've had a fiddle with the algorithms and it really does feed off interaction. So make sure you go and like these guys, catch them, and obviously get on board if they're ever streaming. They're always worth a one. Plus, if one of us is streaming, one or other of the rest of us is probably there because we sort of end up lurking in this weird Ouroboros circle of each other's content. Right, so we're coming to the close. It is time for the allies. This will be the last video in the series, depending on the order that you're watching it in. Let's start with France. Okay, so this is the returning cards from France. They're all... I'm going to do something I wouldn't normally do. I'm going to go through the returning cards, then we're going to talk about the returning cards rather than talking about them individually, because they're not really returning a card. They are returning a keyword / subfaction / package, assuming it doesn't get reworked, and I have something to say. People will be screaming if I don't say I have something to say about that as well, but because this particular word has a history in this game. So this is Arming the Resistance. This is the returning special card. All of these cards are resistance cards. Arming the Resistance is 4-cost order, and it says add a resistance card to enemy hand, then double the number and cost of such cards. Resistance is a 1-cost card, and when you play it, it's, what is it? Choose one. Is it? Yeah, choose one. Deal 1 damage to. Oh, I can bear. Oh, yes. Deal 1 damage to your HQ or discard the top card of your deck. That is important to remember because that's what this mechanic does/did. Next card is the standard card. This is Vive la Resistance. This is add a resistance card to the enemy hand. Also, draw a card. So it cantrips itself. Then we have Liberation. This is a 6-cost special order. It says add 3 resistance cards to enemy hand. Your HQ gains defense equal to cards in the enemy hand. If you're sensing a pattern as a newer player, there is one. Finally, we have Expeditionary Corps, which is the standard unit that is returning, which you would think sounds weird. Everything else is orders. This is a 2-cost, 1-op cost 2/2 infantry that has deployment. Add a resistance card to the enemy hand. Right. Clearly, Resistance's entire purpose was to flood your opponent's hand with resistance cards, which were incredibly negative to them and sometimes positive to you in the way that you played them, thus creating some pretty awful game states and in Cards history moment, a moment at which the developers in the midst of an event realized that they needed to destroy something because it was really, really as bad as everything in your head that you are thinking, but surely maybe it could, but oh god, no, surely it wouldn't, because that would be too bad. It's pretty much all true. It pretty much could do all of this. I will say it from the top. I do not believe that even on their worst day, 1939 are going to return Resistance as it was. However, our job here is to talk about the cards in front of us, which would be made much harder if I didn't happen to have someone who I know knows this archetype and its history in a way that very few people do. Normally, we'd bounce it around, but I'm just going to go straight to JKing on this because let's just dive into the craziness of Resistance.
So first, I just want to say, I do think that it's likely that Resistance is going to be reworked just because of the collective memory people have of Resistance. I actually think these 4 Resistance package cards, with the cards that made Resistance the fearsome deck back in the day, those cards have all been rotated or nerfed into the dirt. I think these package of Resistance cards are worse, substantially worse than the old mill package we had, which has obviously been nerfed, and then also compromises leaving. So I think they could bring it back in this version, and it wouldn't be particularly powerful. But I also think that they're probably going to rework it, which might actually be a good thing, because I don't think the current version of Resistance would see a lot of play at the moment. But I have a couple of quick stories I want to say of Resistance, because they've gone through many different iterations, and I'm not going to go through the whole history of all of them. But the one that comes to mind is Liberation used to be filled the opponent's entire hand with resistance cards. So I remember very, very fondly a situation where my hand was empty and my opponent played Liberation, so I got 9 resistance cards. And then I played out 6 of them and then spent my other 6 credits operating my units on board. So I was left with a hand of 3 resistance cards, and then my opponent played Blackwatch, which back in the day cost 4, and it's permanently increased the cost of orders by 2. And then they did Arming the Resistance to make 9 12-cost resistance cards in my hand, which pretty effectively stopped me from ever being allowed to play the game again. That was a horrendous experience. Now, obviously, Liberation doesn't work that way, Blackwatch doesn't work that way, and also you need 12 credits and those specific cards in hand. Also, I was probably dead lost anyways without those because my hand was entirely empty. So that's not really a story of Resistance was broken, but it was a story of Resistance created very unfun situations. All in all, I think Liberation is the most playable, in that there were some decks that just ran Liberation with like Phony War as just like a 6-cost TL9, your opponent overdraws a card. Expeditionary Corps is the least playable because it's just bad. Vive la Resistance is probably the second most playable just because 1 credit draw card. Sometimes upside is good. Army of the Resistance is pretty situational. And generally not that good. I think with Phony War not being in standard, though, that if they come out in these current forms, all of them would be pretty mediocre.
Yeah, I think it is fair to say that clearly they're not bringing the whole package back, which is another indicator that this is probably going to be a rework to try and bring a keyword that like resistance as a concept is something that obviously you want to have for France in a World War II themed game, just maybe not the way that it has been. Core, I don't know how much you really, beyond the mythology of cards, know any really about resistance. I've toyed with it in Classic, which is about my only claim to fame with this.
No, this is all well before my time. I've heard tell of like resistance before being like this one-time scary entity. But yeah, in before these all just get reworked into shuffle cards.
I mean, it does have to be said. It is. I think the big reason is that it could create some unfun states. I'm not going to hover on it too much though, because two of us probably shouldn't be publicly seen speculating on any reworks to resistance, because it'd be pretty transparent that if there is a rework, we'd be working round trying to pretend that we don't know what it would be if there is going to be one, when we can't tell you whether there's going to be one or not. But the only reason I make any of this commentary is to try and calm some people down, because I know there are some people for which this is going to be a little bit potentially triggering, because resistance has a history. Let's move on to the stuff. Oh, yep, sorry.
I will say, JKing did mention that he doesn't think it would like be particularly good, or people wouldn't really play it. I beg to differ, because the sheer amount of people still playing handlock in the current metagame, as well as playing these hyper greedy like France ally like anti-control decks with compromise right now, I think people will just play this as just handlock. Honestly, I think people will be more than happy to do that.
But see, I'm with you. There will always be a huge player base for super greedy decks. I think they just continue playing the like triple sabotage, because resistance kind of makes sabotage worse, and it has anti-synergy with discard because your hand size is small, so you're not overdrawing them with resistance. So I just don't think there's like any crossover with resistance and the current iteration of ultra greedy anti-control French decks.
Yeah, I mean, Grandpa gonna say this is probably a whole new video on metas that we could go into with this. But yeah, let's take a look at what's leaving.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah.
This one is not going to be difficult to read our faces. I can see the other two's faces. You can see all three of our faces. This is not going to be a moment of misery. This is Compromise. Compromise is leaving. Compromise is currently the 4-cost standard order. And it says choose one, draw a card, and gain +3 HQ defense, or do this twice for both players. This was a major part of Mill. This has been a major part of a number of incredibly annoying decks. I'm not sorry to see it go. I've been on record as saying that Mill is in my top 10 7 Deadly Sins list of archetypes to have in card games, not because, for those of you who are Mill players, it can't be interesting for you to play, but because you tend to forget, because you're not opposite someone at a table, that some other poor bugger is on the other side of quite possibly the most miserable experience you can have, which is sitting down to play a game and having your opponent go, no. Also, I'm going to get rid of all of your stuff, while saying, no, you can't play the game, and I'll heal myself, because why not? But I'm not sad to see Compromise go, nor am I massively surprised, because Mill's been being hammered and changed and battered with for so long now, it hurts my head. JKing, you've dealt with
Can
this
you
for even.
imagine? Can you imagine if Cards was a physical card game and like you invited a friend over to play some cards, or you go out to a game store to play some cards, and you know they got whatever they're brewing, and you sit down and start playing compromises against them and just build their entire deck in a game that's gonna take like an hour? They would never play with you again. But because we're on an online card game where you don't have to look at your opponent across the table and they don't have to agree to play against you and your deck beforehand, we
Yeah.
all just kind of think it's okay. But yeah, no, I enjoy building mill. I enjoy playing mill. Um, to a certain extent, I can enjoy playing against mill because it's a very different game experience that does offer certain amounts of skill expression because of just how differently you play the game compared to any other deck. So I don't fundamentally hate Mill being in the game, but Compromise was not it. And I mean, after they nerfed Compromise, which it needed to be nerfed, that was a good nerf. But then they nerfed Honor and Loyalty, and then they rotated Honor and Loyalty, and then they rotated Phony War, and people were still playing Mill. This is a change that I'm happy with because people would not let this deck go. Like, if the popularity of this deck dropped off a lot, and then they rotated Compromise at this time, I would be like, well, like, did you need to change it? But at this point, they did need to change it because, guys, just because something is greedy does not mean you have to jam it 24/7.
Yeah. It's dead. Let it go, Jim. I will say, do I, the dinosaur in the room, do not have to imagine what it would feel like to sit down to a physical card game and play against this kind of deck. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. It is as miserable as it sounds. And I fun fact, I once had a whole conversation with one of my Twitch followers on a live Twitch stream about this subject and the issue that I have with forgetting that there's another human being involved. But yeah, I'm going to assume, Core, you are not about to surprise the life out of me by defending the existence of Compromise?
No, I'm gonna be very glad that when I queue a control deck, I'm not gonna randomly have a 5% chance to lose to a random person playing 4 Compromise, triple Happy Time, triple Sabotage anymore.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
God, that is so stupid. Every single time I queue with control, there is just like a 10% chance I get the greediest person on ladder with like all the anti-control tools in the world who never, for some reason, never queues into aggro somehow. But like, oh God, I'm just glad I will never have to experience that ever. Like, well, I'll still experience triple half time, triple sabotage, but they'll be dead well before that becomes relevant, at least.
Yep. Okay, I think we can safely move on. Okay, so this is the first Régiment Étranger, or Étranger. Don't at me. I was raised to speak French one way. JKing will have learned French a different way because he'll have learned it the Canadian way. There are at least 5 different ways that French people speak French, and I was raised a particular way, and it's hard for me to adjust it. This is mostly because I've had the Motrice versus Motrice thing in my inbox so often it hurts my head. But this is a limited 5 cost, 1 op cost, 1/1, yes, really, infantry, that has Mobilize, Blitz, deployment, gets +1/+1 for each card in the enemy hand. Now, I actually don't know the history of this card, which is why I'm glad I have JKing here, because this card reads to me like something that's just had crap added onto it and tweaked multiple times in an attempt to make it something. Because this is the ultimate horse built by committee problem. Why does it need such a... Okay, first of all, yes, it's going because it's mobilized. We can probably get that. It's been in dev blogs before. They're getting rid of Mobilize, probably for a rework in the future. But my biggest observation on this card, aside from actually quite liking the artwork, is This is such a clusterfuck of text on card.
This card has actually never been changed. That's what it was released with in Theaters of War.
Dear
And-
sweet lord!
Yeah, I mean, this is a card that saw... it was decently popular in Resistance decks on ladder for a period of time. It never saw any tournament play, because it was always just better to continue filling your opponent's hand with cards rather than like fill their hand with cards and then drop like a 9/9, because if you're playing against competitive decks, they will just have an answer to a 9/9. And sometimes you didn't on ladder and you'd lose, but like yeah, it was never like tournament viable, and obviously it fell off pretty hard with Suppress.
Yeah, a little bit. Core, I'm guessing this is a little out of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, no, I have no experience with this card, but I will say this: 1 ER Regiment Étranger. There you go. Now there's some mental damage inflicted on everyone.
Oh god! If it hurts anyone listening as much as it probably just hurt me and JKing, it was worth it just for the drop. You may have points, sir. Okay. Oh dear. So this is the second brigade. This is another France card. This is a France special, which is leaving us. And it's leaving because it's mobilized. It's a 4-cost, 1-op cost, 2/6 mobilize guard infantry that also has, at the start of your turn, give +1/+1 if mobilized. So if you mobilized it while it was mobilized, it mobilized itself some more, basically. It's just the ultimate big growing boy.
This is a card that I've played before on ladder. I don't think I ever brought it to tournament. Maybe I think one of my singleton decks might have been a Soviet France, so I might have brought it in that. But it's a card that I've thought about running in theory, and I've played it a bit on ladder at various points in time where there wasn't guards, or there was just a lot of slow decks that weren't doing anything in the meta, because it was like against aggro you just play it as a 4-cost 2/6 guard that's fine body, and against control that like wasn't really doing anything, it's a 4-drop guard that's a threat rather than a dead card in a control matchup. So yeah, I don't know, there's just more aggro generally speaking than control that can't remove a 4-drop. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fine card, but it's been removed because it says mobilize on it.
Yep. I'm guessing Core's pretty much with us on the, hey, look, mobilize.
Yeah, pretty much. 1939 heard you like mobilize, so they put some more mobilize on your mobilize so you can mobilize.
Yeah.
Yeah, like on Ray it's fine, and as JKing said, slower decks that don't like can't immediately sickle it or whatever have to look at a 4/8 and then like a 6/10 or whatever as it like continues to scale. But like, yeah, it's fine. Just again mobilize. So.
Yep. And lastly, we have the H75C1. This is a limited fighter. 3-cost, 2-op cost, 2/3 deployment. Give a friendly unit mobilize, and basically that's its death knell, which it's a beautiful piece of art and a really interesting aircraft historically. Go Google it, it's fascinating. I hope it comes back. I hope it gets reworked. I don't have a whole heap to say about it, because really its only function is to target something to give it mobilize, presumably in a deck where you want to have a ton of mobilize.
Yeah, this card sucks. Never saw play. Nothing to say about it other than there's only 2 cards with mobilize left in the game now.
Yeah. What I don't understand is, I know they like reworked the Bloche, like while it was still in standard. I understand it, like it used to be a mobilize card.
Yes.
Why don't they just do that with some of these god awful mobilize cards? Just give them an actual effect like they did with the Bloche or the block or whatever. However, I don't speak French. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I think it's block. I looked into the history of that card, and it's like named after the founder who came from Switzerland.
Yes.
But like a Jewish family in Switzerland. So I think it's like a
he was
Jewish,
a Swiss
German,
yeah. He's technically, there's a whole exile thing going on, but it is technically properly pronounced Bloch. But that's
okay. I I just wanted to make sure there's no reason that they can't like
No,
change these
Yeah.
effects without rotating them. Okay. No, I just wanted to know because I really do hope that they do at least something cool with the Sharpie, because the Sharpie is such an interesting tank historically. There's some really cool stories
Yeah.
about it. So I really want them to do something like properly cool with the Sharpie. I would like a playable mid-range tank, and I would like them to make it the Sharpie. 1939 if you're out there. Probably not, but still.
I mean, in fairness, at this point, if Kelly ever catches this video, he knows that he's got at least one other person who has joined the endless bear. Can we just have France mid-range? I've been on this since before I even joined internal testing. More France mid-range cards, please. Right, so that's France. Next, it's Finland. Strap yourselves in, folks. This is going to be a lot. No, wait. Okay, Finland. Moving to the reserve pool, we have one card, which is not a shock, given that Finland is the newest nation in the game. This is Frozen Assets. This is a 4-cost standard Finnish order, and it says add a sissy adjacent to a friendly unit. It has blitz and salvage. If you don't know what sissy is a 1-cost, 1-op cost, 1/1 infantry with death. No. With if this deals damage to an enemy or an enemy takes damage from this, it's destroyed. I'm endlessly going to want to call it Death Touch because that's what it is. But yeah, that's what sissy does. I mean, I have seen this used. It is occasionally a 5-cost way of removing something potent. But I'm not 100% sure I quite know why it's rotating. But hey, I don't think it's going to change the world.
Yeah. I mean, they could have just rotated like the 3K, 3/4 salvage, largely vanilla infantry from the same expansion, but because like the only place Frozen Assets was seen play was draft, and it was already, I think it was one of the cards that got put on the draft ban list for Finland. So like it wasn't even in draft anyways. But at the same time, nobody was really playing this one. The only thing I have to say about this card in a very, very meta sense is why is Finland here in the order of cards? Because the main nations are listed in alphabetical order, as they always are. Britain, Germany, Japan, Soviet, USA. And then the allied nations are neither in alphabetical order nor in the order of their release. It goes France, then Finland, then Italy, Poland. It should go either Finland, France, Italy, Poland, or France, Italy, Poland, Finland. What happened here?
I don't know, but I will say that it does bother me probably more than it should. But that's just who I am. So moving on to Italy, we have 2 cards to talk about with Italy, both moving to the reserve pool, and both of them are Alpine. So we have Eastern Front Bound. This is a 3-cost limited order, and it says give your Alpine units +1/+1, draw an Alpine unit from your deck. It's fairly apparent why this is being rotated. It's fairly apparent that Alpine is no longer on the menu. I look forward to seeing what they either do with Alpine or the Alpine cards in the future, I guess. This just kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about either of these cards. Neither of them were even played in the Alpine decks. Like, Obice was absolutely giga-broken for, like, a month after they buffed it, and then they nerfed it again, and then it went back to not seeing any play. Yeah.
Yeah.
No notes.
Oh.
Nope, I've got nothing.
Speaking of the Obice, because we shall cover it because we can. The Obice DA7513. This is a 3-cost, 1-op cost, 2/3 artillery. It's a special, and it says your Alpine units can move and attack during the same turn. The most noteworthy thing I can say about this card is that somehow, somewhere, if Alpine was ever going to keep up with the modern game in a not broken way, notwithstanding the brief period where there was a real issue, this had to be one of the few ways that you were able to do it, which is to give Alpine something that made it faster. I have run this almost universally in every Alpine deck I have ever built and tried to play, solely and entirely because unless I can get it on the board, a lot of the time I just can't win anyway. But that's not a good sign. Again, it makes sense. I have no notes on this card except I quite like the art.
Yeah. Obice used to say Alpine on it. Like, it used to be an Alpine
Yeah.
unit. So you would,
Oh,
like,
wow.
drop Obice down
Yeah.
as, like, a 7-8.
Yeah, the brief period to which was being referred was when, obviously, that suddenly makes this a crap ton better.
Well, yeah, that would have been the only, like, non-infantry Alpine unit, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that is like that right there is the problem with Alpine. It was entirely infantry, and infantry is incredibly slow.
Yes.
And they couldn't put Blitz on any of the Alpine units because they printed Obice. So giving an Alpine unit Blitz with Obice in the format would be very dangerous. So
yeah.
they very much like shot themselves in the foot with how they designed the entire mechanic.
Basically, Alpine's just in need of some love and a rework to come back in a way that's interesting, because it is fundamentally something that is a big part of Italian history, and I think it'd be interesting, but it needs help badly. Poland, speaking of needing help badly, I'm sorry, I can't not make a Poland needs help badly joke most of the time whenever I see it. Life's getting a bit better. Moving to the reserve pool from Poland, we actually have Agency Africa. So this is a 2-cost special order. It's Exile, Intel 3, add to hand a copy of a random known card in the enemy hand. I assume it's to be reworked in some way or made into something more interesting, but I truly and honestly do not get rotating it. To my knowledge, it wasn't doing anything massively offensive apart from having a very large intel value, which you could have just nerfed or reduced. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a lot to say on it other than it's gone.
Yeah, I think I'm shocked that they didn't rotate the Battle Mark 1 PL, the 2-cost Exile special bomber. Just because there's so many Exile cards, and you can only rotate cards out of the minor nations, like, ever so quickly. So I would have just started with that, because I'm assuming you're going to rotate it someday, because the cards are all trash. Whereas, like, Intel seems like the more evergreen mechanic in Poland. But yeah, the only thing I could think with Agency Africa is just it's a lot. Like, Intel 3 is really high, so like if they added more cards that like do stuff based on the Intel number rather than just any Intel number, it could be feasibly problematic. But I've always like been unsure how to feel about cards like Agency Africa. Like, it's not a great card. It saw some play just because it was. It's also British Exile, so it mainly saw play in Britain, Poland. Because it didn't cost a Polish slot to put in your deck. But like these types of cards where it's like get a random card from your opponent's hand, it's like, well, sometimes you take like Leopold or something, or sometimes you get like a Colm. I don't know. It's just a high variance card.
I've just had a thought. One thing that could be relevant with this, if we assume that, like, even if it's reworked, Resistance is still going to do something about adding to your opponent's hand somehow, this could backfire your own ass if for some reason I don't know, if you've got this card explodes in 3 turns and deals 10 damage to your HQ or something. No, stop it. You're all out there. That was not me leaking a preview. Just don't. But my point being, that might be relevant if they're going to do something with adding to hand, because it does take a card from the hand and it could be a counter.
Like,
I mean, it's not, but yeah. Anyway,
I specifically Britain, France, running Agency Africa, Exile.
Yeah, it's a
Don't play it.
Yeah, it's a reach, but there you go. Core, have you got any commentary on Agency Africa?
Not really. Like, why would you ever play Agency Africa when Punish exists?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I mean, like you could have rotated something like Yak 9PL, I guess. I mean, it wouldn't hurt removing some more random blitz units out of the game.
No,
Honestly, there's
can we
blitz is a
stop?
little bit. We
Yeah,
have a
but
little bit too much blitz, I think.
we can, but can we leave Exile alone? I miss Exile. I had such a
I do
reputation with
not.
that. Yeah, I know.
From what I understand, Hammerhome used to be not a very
Oh,
fun card.
if you
No.
dig into some of my history, there might still be some videos up there, or just ask anyone who ran into me when it was a thing. Yeah, there was a point at which Exile Air was a terrifying, terrifying thing to deal with, and I was kind of, sort of, slightly at the spearhead of that. But yeah, that wraps us up for the patch. I shall zoom back up to the nice pretty Homefront banner. Since this is going to be the last section of the video and we've got a little bit of time at the end of it, the other thing that you'll get a bonus in the allies thing is just our general thoughts. Because you've probably caught a few of them going through. The big thing I want to say, just because sometimes I don't think people get what goes into these, is a huge thank you to 2 human beings who have taken a total of over 11 now, I think, hours out of 2 days to help me build this nonsense, because we sort of collectively agreed that this was a patch / rotation that needed a different treatment because there is a lot going on with it. I could not have made this quality of depth of content on my own. I could have tried, but it would have been hell. And you guys have been amazing, and it's been a pleasure. And I genuinely appreciate you taking the time. And everyone out there, like them, follow them, subscribe to them, interact with them. If you can afford to support them through whatever ways that they support, please do so. We all do this out of passion. None of us got paid for this because we're insane. And legitimately, this has been one of the most fun, for me at least, experiences I've had reviewing a rotation, because it's been both a trip down memory lane, an exchange of stories, and chilling out with my friends. I'll leave my thoughts to the I'll leave my thoughts to the end. I'm going to start at the bottom and work up. So I'm going to let Core wrap up his general thoughts on recording this shit, on the rotation in general. Really anything you want to say, because this is kind of just open source. Have the mic for a bit.
Yeah, I was going to give like brief thoughts nation by nation. I think Britain lost quite a few powerful late game tools like Sexton and Wellington, and a few other like interesting pieces. Stiff upper lip, for example. I don't think Britain needed to be that badly hit in this rotation. I think the Germany hits were pretty good. Alpenfishing and Blitz Doctrine are 2 solid hits, as well as Comet. Everything else is kind of whatever, but the 3 big ones, Alpenfishing, Blitz Doctrine, and Comet, were very necessary hits, I think. Japan got off with nothing being hit. Again, this is like the 4th rotation in a row where Japan loses like nothing of relevance. So I don't know who at 1939 is a Japan main, but it's very clearly someone. Soviets lost a few interesting pieces. Soviets aren't in the best spot in general, so I don't know really if this was necessary. And then US also lost a bunch of very powerful things that it couldn't really afford to lose. So I'm interested to see what exactly these nations are getting in the next set, because we might just be going into another format of Japan being like the most flexible nation.
Yeah, okay. So next up on the mic, JKing, thoughts?
Yeah. Similarly to Core, I think the nations that are hit the hardest are Britain and US. In terms of like not just it's very easy to look at Germany and be like, well, Comet and Alpenfesting and Blitz Doctrine we've seen more play than like anything Britain lost or anything US lost. It's like, well, that's true because Germany has seen the most play, but also Germany's like has plenty of tools left over to continue to be amazing, whereas like Britain and US were not seeing that much play, and also they are losing a lot of the cards that they could play theoretically in the decks that nobody was really playing. So yeah, hopefully the expansion comes in and helps out these nations. Hopefully Germany gets their equivalent of like the repair archetype, or is it the like veteran archetype? One of these like one of these archetypes that just does not pan out whatsoever. Hopefully Germany can get one of those, or Japan can get one of those. But yeah, I think it just shows that when you really break it down, there's a lot more thought that needs to go into rotation than potentially is. Now I don't know everything that goes into rotation, so like maybe they are thinking ahead to their future expansions, but I certainly hope that they are putting in more thought than we are into reviewing their rotations. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say, because it's certainly not the worst rotation they've ever done, but it has its plenty of issues.
Yeah, so top-down thing from me. There are things that I'm happy to see got done. I'm happy to see Germany getting tapered. Obviously, lots of people are going to be happy to see Germany getting tapered, but that was kind of a given. I don't think it was massively difficult to predict that it was going to happen. I thought when I first started reading into this that I was going to be very stereotypical, and my biggest issue was going to be, Britain, come on, it's unfair. But actually, my biggest sad feeling at the moment in the rotation is for the US, which is not usually something I've had a lot of positive to say about with some of its recent archetypes. But US took such a hit in low-end to mid-end, versatile, interesting cards when there were a whole bunch of other things that could comfortably just have gone and no one would have noticed, that I think, even notwithstanding the fact that air hasn't been good recently, Britain will always have air. And eventually air, like life, finds a way, historically, back into the meta. It just does. It just currently can't. For the US, it's harder for me to see what the path forward is. I know it looks like we're bringing back some of the frontline stuff, but honestly, does anyone think that frontline, notwithstanding the nostalgia that at least two of us have, because we're going to be playing it, is actually going to be fast enough and effective enough currently to compete with some of the stuff that's out there? The US, for me, is in the biggest need of help, and I'm going to echo the inevitability. Like, Japan, is there something? I know Japan is like perennially the middle for diddle nation that just has the best aggro deck in the game, but recently it's been getting some really strong, heavier tools. And is there some reason we don't feel comfortable maybe doing something other than just, I mean, the most notable thing that happened, I guess, was they whacked Winter Regiment. Like, really? I think we could have been quite a bit harder on Japan, and it still would have been fine. As for the allied nations, because we don't talk about them a lot, I will remind you, this rotation is not normally massively impactful for the allied nations. Resistance thing notwithstanding, obviously that's a big note and a signalling of a whole different thing coming back. This is just, it's an allied rotation. We'll know more what allies get when we see what allies get from the new expansion. Main nations-wise, yeah, let's see what goes. But we're not going to keep you any longer. If you guys have literally made it, like, 1, if you've made it through all of these videos, well done. 2, if I did put to the vote on my Discord how I was going to put these videos out, and the overwhelming weight was, can we cut it up into 6 chunks, please? So I'm gonna. If you are one of the people who voted for the marathon, just post the whole 8+ hour video as one thing, and you've decided to just watch this whole playlist in one sitting, 1, kudos, but 2, you need help. But this has been a pleasure. This I think is what I had always hoped SOE had the potential to be, which is in-depth conversation about major topics in it. I sincerely hope that I'll be able to convince these two guys and some other folks from the community to come and be involved in more of this going forward. If you think that, please let me know by liking and subscribing and hitting the stupid notification bell and commenting. I know it's trite, I do, but we do need that push and impetus for growth, especially if we're going to get seen by other people. So like it, subscribe to it, share it. Right, that's it. That's me gushing about the incredible humans who have joined me. I'm going to let them say their piece and their farewells, and then I'll wrap it up and we'll say goodbye. We'll go in the other direction now, so we'll start with JKing's final farewells, thank yous, thoughts about what might be coming.
Yeah, all right. So I mean, if you've gotten this far, you know, I'm JKing7. I have a YouTube channel, do Twitch occasionally. Go check it out. Link's probably in the description. I just want to give a huge round of applause to Bear for putting this on, for organizing us, and for inevitably editing all of this down for you guys in the videos that you are watching. Bear is doing a lot of the work. I just show up and talk, which is certainly the easier end of things.
And Core.
Yeah, similarly to JKing, I also make videos and stream over on Twitch. You can find me at JKing7 on both platforms. But seriously, shout out to both JKing and Bear. Bear puts a ton of work, as the JKing, for the deep cuts that we all did together. Again, I have not had to do any editing on any of the things I've been in, and I am just glad for that. So. Yeah, seriously, if you guys are not subscribed to either Bear or JKing, you absolutely should be. So, yeah.
All right, so links are all down below to these guys' stuff, and indeed to my various bits and support and stuff like that, as ever. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for bearing with us, listening to our randomness. I hope you've laughed and almost gotten sore crying with laughter as much as we have in this process. Always stay well, be good human beings, and I will, along with whoever's with me next time, catch you in the next video.